Letters from Mississippi, May 1964, Ann Rowe. May 18th, 1964, Meridian, Mississippi. Living down here in darkest Mississippi is like being in a strange and foreign land. I got off the bus, resplendent in my yellow hat and coat, at 6:15 on Friday evening and sat around for a few minutes in the white section of the bus station. No one paid any attention to me. Then Mickey Schwimmer, the local Corps worker, a stocky young New York Jewish boy with a little neat beard, dressed in t-shirt and jeans, accompanied by a young Negro girl, came in to get me. As we left, I glanced up at all the neat white people who had been ignoring me to that moment, unanimously gave us the look. Wow, what a whammy. I scooted through the door, feeling as conspicuous as a big yellow truck. And I felt conspicuous all the way down the street. And rather frightened, we deposited my heavy suitcase at the center. Then Rita, Mickey's wife, and I went to eat. The community center, maintained by Corps and other civil rights organizations, is downtown in the Negro Commercial District. 2 blocks of cafes, mostly 3 or 4 beauty salons, shoe repair shop, 1 movie which shows old horror movies, etc. We ate, of course, in one of those Negro cafes, Jones Steakhouse. The separation of the races is total. Except for clerks in stores, I have had no contact with any whites except Rita and Mickey. About the community center, there's an article on it in the Reporter of May 2nd. We do have a library of 10,000 books. Mickey and Rita, a lovely girl, have loads of friends in New York. In fact, we're throwing some books out. Boxes in every day. We also have many clients, mostly kids from grade school on up through high school. A lot of the stuff we get is junk that people throw out of their libraries, but we do have some excellent books too. What these kids seem to have a great hunger for are books on Negro history, and of this we have not enough at grade and junior high level. Rita, a very competent, dedicated young person, also runs a sewing project. Boxes of material are sent in, and she helps the women make dresses. Also runs up dresses for the little kids. Lately, we've only been giving material to women who go down to the courthouse to register. We have sample voter registration forms, which we help the people fill out, and if they wish, we go with them to the courthouse. I went with one today, both of us quaking and sweating, but I chickened out at the registrar's door. I leaned against the wall outside waiting for her. Then I strolled around and drank out of all the fountains, 2 white and 1 colored. I slipped across the street to the segregated air-conditioned hotel and bought a Meridian newspaper, a horrible rag. I felt like a traitor, but restrained myself from taking food and drink there. In about 45 minutes, my client came out, sweaty but elated. We went back to the community house, and she told me what section of the Mississippi Constitution she had to interpret. The poor thing, who was almost illiterate, failed. But we gave her the material, and next time, with the benefit of this experience, she'll pass and become a first-class citizen. I live in a fairly substantial house in the Negro district with the kids. They've given me the best bed. The living room has a cot on which sleeps one of the Mississippi Corps boys, Negro, from Hattiesburg, and a mattress on the floor for Alvin, a terribly attractive, intelligent young Negro fellow of 17, who is kicked out of school for his freedom activities. I share one bedroom with Lenore, also Corps staff, who helps with the sewing project, and Mickey and Rita have the other bedroom. As these people only get $10 a week from Corps, I've bought most of the food so far. We have an old refrigerator, stove, modern bathroom, a table, 2 chairs. We eat on the front porch steps, and just enough dishes to go around. I spend about as much on food a day as I would at a hotel. So far, except for strange looks, no harassment, although a police car did follow me and Rita down the street the other night. We've had a few cursing phone calls at night. I don't answer the phone when I'm home alone. It's a crazy, weird world. The poor frightened whites, and even the Negro upper classes, preachers are afraid to help us. However, these wonderful kids have a functioning center in spite of all. No movies, no TV, even the little radio fades out. The Negro has really very little cultural life here. And except for the one crummy movie and the cafes, no recreation. No wonder these youngsters are willing to take these risks for freedom. May 20th, 1964, 2505 and a half, 5th Street, Meridian, Mississippi. Mississippi is as crazy as I thought it would be, and I'm getting used to living in this hot booby hatch. Even the 3-foot-high white-only sign painted on the side wall of the laundromat is becoming just a part of the scenery to me. Meridian is a town about the size of Grand Forks, and much like it in layout. It is, of course, ferociously segregated, and we, as conscientious civil writers, do not eat in segregated eating places, which limits us to the joints in the Negro area where food is not very good. Joints in the Negro area where food is not very good. There's only one unsegregated movie in town, which is now showing Blood Feast and Four in the Morgue. Not very appetizing. And TV is one of the luxuries CORE does not provide its workers. I can't, of course, go and sit in the lobby of the segregated hotel, although I am curious as to what they show on Southern TV. Mostly, I hang around the community house cataloging the excellent library. On Saturday, I helped some sweet little girls with their reading. On Sunday, I went to an all-day COFO meeting in Jackson, 90 miles away. The people had a workshop and acted out a precinct meeting. On Monday, I escorted a quivering Negro lady to the courthouse to attempt to register to vote after instructing her on the sections of the Mississippi Constitution. The registrar seemed to favor. On Tuesday evening, I attended class night exercises of 2 of the girls of our student group. I was the only white in the auditorium and felt rather conspicuous, but I didn't seem to get much attention. The newspapers here are wild, and I'm enclosing a bunch of clippings, except for the clerks at Woolsworth, where I hang around because it's air-conditioned. I've spoken to no whites except Mickey and Rita Brewster, core workers from New York, who run the center and with whom I'm living. There's absolutely no communication as far as I can see between the races, except, of course, the police, who always seem to be arresting someone on the street. We haven't been harassed so far, although things will change this summer. Just a few hate looks and some crank phone calls. The people here are getting ready for a long, hot summer, on both sides. May 24th, 1964, Meridian, Mississippi. This morning, Sunday, the boys took me for a tour of Meridian, the second largest city of Mississippi. The boys wore the corps uniform, t-shirt and overalls, all bedecked with Freedom Now buttons. We drove through the streets in integrated defiance. The housing, according to Jim Chaney, our driver, who knows who lives in every house, is not as segregated as up north. Negroes and whites live across from each other and even on the same block. However, although I saw lots of kids out on the streets playing, each kind seemed to play with their own kind. We went through streets of big, imposing plantation-type houses, and not far from them, across the street from the white bourgeois, more modest than the mansions, the homes of the Negro faculty of the Negro Junior College. On their salaries, they must be mortgaged into the 21st century. No wonder they're so cautious. As for recreational facilities, they're separated all right, but equal they are not. For the whites, a lovely park with magnolia trees, pavilion, merry-go-round, pool. For the Negroes, a bare piece of scrubby land with a few swings, teeter-totters, and a pool not yet filled. No trees, no shade. The pool not yet filled. It's pitiful and infuriating. We wound up the trip by going to visit one of our boys at the county convict farm. He got 30 days and a $100 fine for writing obscenities on his voter registration form. Not a very violent thing to do, but it's still a ferocious sentence. So we drove up the road past the well-kept tree-shaded lawn to 3 pleasant-looking stone buildings. A group of guards, one a Negro, were sitting nicely integrated under a tree in clean Sunday t-shirts, jeans, and 2 of the famous dogs. It all looked tranquil and southern until 2 sheriffs turned up. Right from the movies. Big, burly, mean-eyed, heavy-jawed men with some sort of strap arrangement over their shirt. Wide-brimmed straw hats, right out of the Sidney Poitier Tony Curtis movie of some years ago. We sat into the building where Sam was locked up, and behind the pleasant facade was a grim interior. There were 4 of us, and one of these mean-eyed sheriffs stood right at our elbow, crowding us. A guard also came in, so we were surrounded. It was tense. The boys went up to the bars, but I sat on a bench against the wall. There was a barred opening about a foot square in the wall, at about face height if you are 6 feet tall. A stone bench along the cage wall, with a lower opening through which the food was passed. We'd brought some cigarettes, but were not allowed to hand them to Sam. We were told to put them on the bench to be examined later, I suppose. Mickey had brought along a small tape recorder, so we asked the sheriff if he could have Sam say something to his daddy. Then he gritted, "You're not putting nothing on that tape, boy. Carry that out to the car now." By this time, I'd got claustrophobia so bad, I jumped out and said to Mickey, "I'll take it," and went out to the car. The boys followed in a few minutes, and so did mean old Big Daddy. Freedom House, where I live, has no TV, nothing but beds, a table, 2 chairs, a stove, and refridge. We eat buffet style on the porch. The street has no sidewalks, no streetlights. There is lots being done in spite of the tension. I only hope it keeps nonviolent this summer, but... May 26, 1964. I'm afraid blood will flow. Violence is in the air down here. The power structure is as intense as the Nazis. May 27th. At the Negro School, I had lunch with the teachers at their cafeteria, and the discussion was lively and uninhibited. They're very cautious, though, and steer clear of the CR movement, and for good reason. It would mean their jobs, licenses, perhaps their lives. Also, some have lovely homes, and I suppose on their salaries, heavily mortgaged. Yesterday I went to Tougaloo College, a Negro church school with integrated faculty, which the power structure calls a hotbed of integrationist communism. It's a church-connected school, and the state doesn't contribute a penny. Here a group is working on a literacy project for the summer. It's all bubbling away on both sides. The legislature has passed numerous laws in preparation. I hope too many people don't get hurt. I'm writing this from Anniston, Alabama, where the Freedom Riders bus was burned and people hurt. I walked down the street and I wondered if every white face I saw hadn't been hidden in a hood. May 30th, 1964. Anniston, Alabama. Living in Mississippi is really quite horrible. For a Negro or white civil rights worker, there's always the fear of arrest or at least contact with the police. They're most capricious, too. I had the name and address of a white woman teaching at Tougaloo College, a predominantly Negro college outside Jackson, Mississippi. One hot, sticky Mississippi morning, I took the bus out to see her. A tall, handsome, gracious, middle-aged white woman from Pasadena, I believe. A grandmother, the faculty, have their own quarters. A small suite, living room, tiny, and bedroom. There's a common bathroom for every 4 suites, and a kitchen with fridge and facilities for making coffee. They eat in the faculty dining room at the student union, air-conditioned. We found we had a lot in common. She likes this way of life as she doesn't care about keeping home. She enjoys testing Mississippi segregation in her ladylike way. The day I was there, she told at the dinner table about going to the Jackson Public Library with her Negro woman secretary and an Indian woman teacher from Tougaloo, all decked out in sari and caste mark. There was a policeman at the library to reinforce the librarians turning them away. So she said they were tired and were waiting for the legislature to open in an hour. Where could they rest? The librarian suggested the bus station or the YWCA. So they sauntered over to the YWCA, of which Mrs. Campbell, the white woman, is a member. The embarrassed director tucked them away in her office for a few minutes. She was terrified of having a mixed group be seen in the public rooms. It's insane. Then Mrs. C and her friend went to Morrison's, a large chain cafeteria like Manning's. Mrs. C has such a distinctive air that no one insulted her or her friends, but the people behind the counter just stood paralyzed, pressed against the wall. The manager scooted out for the police. Finally, at her insistence, she was served meat, but the others had to make do with salad, dessert, and food they could pick up themselves. 2 police came, but did not enter the cafe. They stood outside, so Mrs. C and her friends ate a leisurely lunch, then went out into the arms of the police, who did not arrest them or speak, just glared as they went by. The other customers in the cafe, except for a few startled looks, just ate heartily. I think that after Mrs. Peabody's publicity, they're just not arresting more grandmothers this year, so far. Things will probably get more intense later this summer when the students come down. I suppose I should have stayed down to take advantage of my grandmotherly immunity, but the atmosphere of latent terror and violence is very hard to live with. Another thing were my exuberant fellow workers, the oldest 25 years old. I would have had to have taken an apartment of my own. No house mothering for me, no thanks. Another item in the small world department. It happened like this. I was in the restroom of the Greyhound station in Anniston. 2 other white women also. One a nervous little elderly party. We were washing our hands when a handsome, well-dressed Negro girl came in and smoothed her hair. This elderly white woman leaned to me and hissed, "Is she supposed to be in here?" So I said mildly, "Why, yes, the ICC ruled that this is a public restroom for all the public." So the little old lady's face crumpled as she scooted out to tell the station manager, I suppose. The Negro girl said, "I'm used to it." I just smiled it off. When we got on the bus, this girl and a boy friend I sat in the back of them and chatted a bit. She's a graduate of Tuskegee, a major in dietetics, on her way to Boston to work in a hospital. Her friend was from Atlanta, so I asked him if he knew Clark College. He said he attended it. I asked him if he knew Mrs. Cureton, who teaches French and Spanish there. He said she was his teacher. Sarah Cureton had been my roommate when I attended a language institute in Purdue in 1954. He gave me her address, and after I registered at the hotel, I called her. She invited me out to her lovely home. She invited me to go with her to dinner and a bridge party at a friend's home on Friday night. There I met the women of the Negro elite of Atlanta, beautifully dressed and coiffed. They had been all over. When I admired the exquisite lace blouse on one, she said she got it in Brussels. They were fun to talk to and played murderous bridge. I read Faulkner's Light in August while in Mississippi, and I can certainly understand it, the book, better now. It's so true. Imagine me staying at the hotel, Jefferson Davis, the only hotel in town, and what a crummy hole. January 12th, 1964, Denver, Colorado. I suppose you were all out for the big demonstration on Sunday. I hope it was a big demonstration. As a memorial to poor Mickey Schwerner and James Chaney, and the other young fellow whom I only knew slightly. When I read about the explosion at the Freedom House in McCobb, in which Don Edwards, the California congressman, was sleeping, I suddenly realized what danger I'd been in. My God! I slept in the front bedroom, right against the wall of a house like the one whose whole front had been blown up. However, no one had blown up either the community center or the Freedom House in Meridian yet. It is considered a fairly civilized place for Mississippi. I wrote a letter to a white teacher I met there, expressing my horror at the atrocities, and I got a fighting answer saying, in effect, how I and those like me who invaded were causing all the trouble and restlessness amongst our Negroes. Ah me, and that's one of the nice, decent, respectable ones. Los Angeles Times, Thursday, August 5th, 1999, obituaries. Ann L. Rowe. A memorial service will be held Sunday for Anna L. Rowe of San Francisco, an educator, political activist, and environmentalist who died July 9th at the age of 95. She died at Creekside Lodge in San Pablo, where she had moved a few months ago. She was born Anna Luba Meblin in Orsha, Russia in 1903, when she was still a child. She and her family immigrated to Grand Forks, North Dakota. She graduated from the University of North Dakota and became a teacher, taking jobs in a variety of locations, including Michigan, New Mexico, and Puerto Rico. She also taught in Moscow, where her students were children of technicians and engineers from around the world who were working in the Soviet Union on the industrial development of the new nation. While in Moscow, she met Clifford Hooper Rowe, a noted political cartoonist for the Daily Worker and founder of the Artists International Association. The two married in 1933, returned to England, his native country. The two had a son, Jack, the next year, but they divorced shortly thereafter. She and her son then returned to the United States. Miss Rowe spent 6 years working as a curriculum supervisor in the Puerto Rico school system. She moved on to take a post as a Spanish teacher in Royal Oak, Michigan. She retired in 1963 and moved to San Francisco. She soon became active in the civil rights movement. In 1964, she went to Mississippi as a volunteer to help register black voters. She worked with Michael Schwimmer, James Chaney, and Andrew Goodman, civil rights volunteers who were killed that year by segregationists. As a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, she took part in weekly demonstrations in Union Square against the Vietnam War until the war ended. She was also involved in environmental issues and for years donated to several organizations. A woman of wit, charm, and intelligence, she had friends all over the world. She was the belly of the ball wherever she went. The belle of the ball wherever she went. She said her sister Denise Kessler, she was a very hip lady. She is survived by her sister and her son, both of San Francisco, and by her sister Frances Hartstein of Indiana, her brother David Meblin of Palo Alto, 3 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. The memorial service will be held from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Potrero Hill Neighborhood House, 953 DeHaro Street in San Francisco. Contributions may be made in her memory to Agape Foundation, 1095 Market Street, Suite 304, San Francisco, California, 94103, Potrero Hill Neighborhood House, 953 DeHaro Street, San Francisco, California, 94107, or a charity of choice.